Ever wonder how some people afford such nice things? Simple answer, they can't. The person with the luxury car often has nothing in savings. The one with the expensive bag is probably carrying credit card debt to match. Welcome to the era of borrowed status. Let me paint you a picture that doesn't add up. Americans now owe more than $1 trillion in credit card debt. That's not a typo, a trillion with a T. At the same time, luxury brands are reporting record sales. High-end car dealerships can't keep inventory on the lot. Social media is filled with people showing off hotel suites, fancy dinners, and designer wardrobes. Something is off. The math doesn't work. You can't have record debt and record luxury spending unless one thing is true. People are buying things they can't afford to look like people they're not. We've entered an era where appearance has become more important than substance. Looking successful matters more than being successful, and that shift is quietly destroying people's finances. Once you learn to spot the signs, you'll see it everywhere. The car in the driveway that doesn't match the bank account, the wardrobe that costs more than the emergency fund, the lifestyle that crumbles the moment you peek behind the curtain. Real money doesn't need a spotlight. It does its work in the background. The money that needs an audience? That's usually the money that doesn't exist. Today we're breaking down the tells, the things people do when they're trying to look wealthy but aren't. And more importantly, how to make sure you don't fall into the same trap. First sign, the badge without the bill. This is someone who buys the cheapest version of the most expensive brand. The BMW with manual seats and no navigation. The Mercedes with the smallest engine they offer. The Audi with cloth interior and basic wheels. Walk through any parking lot and you'll see this pattern. A luxury car that looks like it came with no options. Because it didn't. The buyer paid for the emblem on the hood. Everything else was secondary. Here's the part that kills me. For the same money, you could buy a fully loaded car from a reliable brand. Leather seats, premium sound, all the safety features, a smoother ride, better fuel economy, lower insurance. But that car doesn't have the right logo, so it's invisible to the badge hunter. The trap doesn't end at the purchase. That entry-level luxury car comes with luxury upkeep, premium gas, expensive parts, higher insurance, specialized mechanics. The maintenance costs don't care that you bought the base model. Someone chasing status might spend a quarter of their income on looking the part. Someone actually building wealth spends a fraction of that. The difference doesn't just add up. It multiplies, year after year. The badge buyer hopes the car will make them look successful. The person who skips the badge actually becomes successful because their money goes to assets, not appearances. Second sign, the loudest voice in the room about money. Watch for the person who steers every conversation toward finances, their income, their investments, the deal they're working on, the raise they're expecting, the stock that's about to pop. You mention you're looking at houses. Suddenly they're talking about the square footage of their place. You talk about a vacation. They've got a better one. You share a small win. They have a bigger one. It's like they're constantly saying, "Look at me. I'm doing well. Are you looking? Please look." Here's what's really happening. People who are genuinely secure don't need to remind everyone around them. The reminder is for themselves. They're trying to convince themselves as much as anyone else. Pay attention to the tense. Is it present or future? I'm about to close a huge deal. Once this thing takes off, everything changes. I've got something big in the works. Always future. Because the present doesn't match the story they're telling. Deals fall through. Investments go sideways. Opportunities vanish. But the person who needs to look successful talks about the money that's coming. Not the money that's here. Because the money that's here isn't enough. Another version of this is confusing activity with results. My business did $500,000 last year. What they don't say is that after expenses, they took home $50,000. Still decent, but not the story they're telling. People who actually have money don't need to perform. They don't need to prove anything. Their life doesn't depend on your approval. Third sign, the wardrobe that costs more than the safety net. Someone carrying a $4,000 bag with $1,000 in savings. A luxury watch on the wrist of someone who couldn't cover a surprise car repair. A closet full of designer labels and an empty emergency fund. This isn't celebrating success. This is dressing up for a role they haven't landed yet. There's an old rule that makes this clear. If you can't afford to buy it twice, you can't afford it once. If a single purchase represents 2 months of income, that's not a treat. That's a gamble. The bag will impress strangers for maybe 3 seconds. The empty bank account will stress you out for years. Think about what that purchase actually represents. Not smart decisions, not financial freedom, not security, just a willingness to trade future stability for present appearance. I've seen people finance designer items, monthly payments on a handbag, Interest charges on a watch. The item loses value the moment you buy it. The debt stays. By the time it's paid off, you've spent way more than the sticker price for something worth half what you paid. People with actual wealth make purchases that fit within their foundation. Their nice things are a small part of their overall picture, not the whole picture balanced on a shaky table. If a single item could wipe out your savings, you can't afford it. That's not a rule from a finance textbook. That's just common sense dressed up as wisdom. Fourth sign, the competition you didn't sign up for. This is the person who treats every conversation like a contest. You share a win, they have a bigger win. You mention something you're proud of, they have something more impressive. Picture this, you tell someone you finally paid off your student loans. Instead of congratulations, you get, "Oh, I paid mine off last year. Took me 3 years of grinding. You should have seen how much I was putting toward it every month." Your moment, your achievement, now it's about them. It's like they're allergic to letting anyone else have the spotlight, even for a second. What drives this? Insecurity. Pure and simple. Someone who's genuinely confident doesn't feel threatened by your success. They can celebrate with you without needing to redirect attention to themselves. But for the person pretending to be wealthy, your good news feels like a challenge. It diminishes them somehow, so they have to one-up you. They have to reclaim the top spot. Watch how they respond to other people's wins. Do they genuinely celebrate, or do they immediately pivot to their own accomplishments? Real wealth allows someone to be happy for others. Fake wealth requires constant comparison because the foundation underneath is shaky. Any reminder that someone else is doing well threatens the image they're trying to maintain. Fifth sign, the feed that doesn't match the life. Social media has become a highlight reel for people who don't have much to highlight. The curated photos of luxury experiences, the expensive meals, the hotel rooms, the designer bags. If you only looked at the feed, you'd think this person had it all. But if you looked at the bank account, you'd see a different story. The experience isn't real until it's posted. The meal isn't satisfying until it's photographed. The vacation doesn't count until the story is up. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Showing off gets more attention than showing discipline. A post about a $500 shopping trip gets likes. A post about adding $500 to savings gets ignored. This creates a trap. People learn that projecting wealth generates attention, whether the wealth is real or not, so they perform prosperity while building nothing underneath. Nobody posts their budget spreadsheet. Nobody shares the 14 hours they spent at home on a Saturday because they're saving money. Nobody films themselves saying no to an expensive dinner. Social media shows the highlights, but the fake rich need you to believe the highlights are the whole story. Look at the engagement too. Some accounts have massive follower counts, but the comments are generic. Bots. Bought followers to support the bought image. Layers of performance stacked on top of each other. People with actual money don't need to document their spending for strangers. They don't need validation from people they'll never meet. Their life doesn't require an audience. Sixth sign, the rental lifestyle. This deserves its own category because it's become so normal that people don't see it as a warning sign. Leasing luxury cars, renting designer items, financing a lifestyle with no ownership. Here's how it works. You pay for the most expensive period of a car's life, the years when it loses value fastest. Then you give it back, start over, pay the same expensive period again on another car. This cycle never ends, payment after payment, year after year. And at the end, nothing. No equity, no asset, just the memory of having looked the part. You're renting the appearance of wealth, and the rent keeps going up. Someone who leases luxury cars for 20 years has made hundreds of thousands in payments and owns absolutely nothing. Not $1 of that money came back. The appeal is simple. Lower monthly payments let you drive a car you couldn't actually afford to buy. You look successful without having to save for it. What doesn't show is the full cost, the premium insurance, the expensive maintenance, the fees at the end when you've gone over mileage, the cycle of never-ending payments that could have been building something real. If you genuinely want a nice car, buying used makes far more sense. But buying used doesn't come with the same instant status. The rental lifestyle is about the appearance now, not the asset later. Seventh sign, the next big thing. This is the person who's always chasing the next opportunity. Forex, crypto, dropshipping, multi-level marketing, some new system that's going to change everything if you get in now. A tiny percentage of people succeed at these things. The vast majority lose money. But the fake rich love talking about them because they're always in the future. They're not talking about what they've built. They're talking about what they're about to build. The potential justifies the current lack of results. It's always when this pays off and once this takes off. Never, Here's what I've actually accomplished. Here's the pattern. Someone discovers a new opportunity, goes all in, talks about it constantly, tries to recruit everyone, projects massive confidence. 6 months later, they've lost money, but they never mention that part. Instead, they've moved on to the next opportunity. Equally confident, equally vocal, a trail of abandoned ventures they never acknowledge. Always chasing, never arriving. Admitting failure would break the image, so they just keep moving, hoping the next thing finally delivers the results they've been promising everyone, including themselves. Real wealth isn't built on a series of home runs. It's built on consistent singles. Slow, boring, unremarkable. But the slow and boring doesn't match the fake rich identity. They need something dramatic, even if that something only exists in their imagination. When someone can't stop talking about their next big opportunity, their current situation probably isn't worth talking about. 8th sign, the unsolicited financial coach. This person doesn't just talk about their own money. They tell you what you should be doing with yours. Unsolicited, unwelcome, and always in a way that makes their choices look superior. You mention you're happy renting. They tell you why buying is better. You drive a reliable used car. They question why you haven't financed something newer. You're saving cash. They tell you that money should be in whatever they're invested in. The advice is never asked for, and it's always pointing toward the same path they've taken. It's not about helping you, it's about validating themselves. Here's the psychology. If you're succeeding with a different approach, it challenges their choices, so they need to convince you, and maybe themselves, that their way is the right way. Your situation is different from theirs. Your goals, your timeline, your risk tolerance, your responsibilities. Someone who actually understands money knows that different strategies work for different people. The fake rich need everyone to make the same choices, because if you succeed on a different path, what does that say about theirs? Watch how they react when you don't take their advice. Do they get frustrated, dismissive? Do they double down? The more they need you to agree, the less confident they are in their own decisions. People who have actually built something don't need you to copy them. They don't need your approval. They don't need to coach you. Their results speak for themselves. 9th sign, the human billboard. Every visible surface is a brand. The belt, the bag, the shoes, the shirt, the watch, nothing subtle, nothing quiet. Everything designed to signal wealth at maximum volume. They've seen wealthy people in movies and decided to dress like that. But real wealthy people don't dress like that. Not on ordinary days. The richest people in most rooms don't need you to know they're rich. They're not trying to prove anything to strangers. Their life doesn't depend on your impression of them. Here's something worth noticing. Look at photos of actual billionaires, not at events, just living their lives. Mark Zuckerberg wears the same gray shirt every day. Warren Buffett drives a modest car. Many of the wealthiest people you'd pass on the street without a second glance. They have nothing to prove. They could buy anything, so they don't feel the need to buy everything. The fake rich operate from the opposite place. They feel they have everything to prove, so every item becomes evidence. Every accessory becomes a statement. The louder the display, the more desperate the attempt. When every single thing someone wears is designed to signal wealth, the signal becomes noise. It reads as trying too hard, not as having arrived. Real confidence doesn't need a logo. Real wealth doesn't need an audience. The person who has it doesn't spend time convincing you they have it. Let's bring this together before we wrap up. 1. The badge without the build. Buying the cheapest version of the most expensive brand just for the logo. 2. The loudest voice in the room. Constant money talk because the present doesn't match the story. 3. The wardrobe that costs more than the safety net. Luxury items on an empty bank account. 4. The competition you didn't sign up for. One-upping because your success threatens their image. 5. The feed that doesn't match the life. Social media highlights that hide the real picture. 6. The rental lifestyle. Leasing the appearance of wealth while owning nothing underneath. 7. The next big thing. Always chasing opportunities, never building anything real. 8. The unsolicited financial coach, criticizing your choices to validate their own. 9. The human billboard. So many logos you can't see the person underneath. Here's what this all comes down to. 2 different ways of approaching money. The fake rich optimize for how things look to other people. Every decision passes through a filter. Will this impress? Will this signal status? Will this make me look like I've made it? The actually wealthy optimize for how things work for themselves. Does this purchase make sense for my goals? Does this decision move me toward independence? Does this align with what I actually value, not what I want others to think I value? Real wealth is quiet. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need validation. It does its work in the background while you sleep. Fake wealth is a performance that gets more expensive over time. The car needs maintaining. The wardrobe needs updating. The lifestyle needs sustaining. Every month, more money goes toward the image while nothing goes toward the substance. The person chasing appearance often ends up poorer than they started. The effort of looking wealthy prevents them from becoming wealthy. The next time you see someone projecting prosperity, look closer. You'll start to notice the cracks. The base model luxury car, the constant talk about money, the designer items that don't match the bank account. But here's the more important part. Check yourself. Are you making decisions based on what genuinely serves your future? Or are you spending to maintain an image that's slowly draining you? Real wealth doesn't need to be seen. It doesn't need to be validated. It exists whether or not anyone else notices. The goal isn't to look like you have money. The goal is to actually have money. One path is expensive and exhausting and leads nowhere. The other builds quietly until one day you realize you have options most people only pretend to have. If this video helped you see through the performance, hit that like button. It helps more people find it. And subscribe if you want more videos about building actual wealth. Not the borrowed kind, the real kind. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me, what's the most obvious pretend wealthy thing you've ever seen? The leased car? The designer bag on a credit card? The person who talks about money constantly but can never cover a small emergency? Be honest. Be specific. Let's fill the comments with real stories. Maybe help someone else recognize the trap before they fall in. Read them. I'll be in there. Let's figure this out together. Thanks for watching. Build real, not fake. See you in the next one.